Welcome to The Landscape, George Smith Partners podcast.
Hello and welcome to The Landscape. This is George Smith Partners podcast. My name is Evan Kinne, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. David Pascale.
Hello, everyone. Good to have you.
Today we have a very special co-host, our own Jonathan Chassin, a managing director in our New York office for George Smith Partners. We're very excited for Jonathan to join us today with a very special guest, Mr. Michael Cohen, the managing partner at Brighton Capital Advisors. And we'll let Jonathan Chassin introduce Michael in a little bit more detail here. Before we get started, though, David, where do you find out more about FinFacts?
gspartners.com and sign up for FinFacts.
That's right. So without further ado, let's move it over to Mr. Jonathan Chassin in our New York office, and he can give a little bit of background about today's very special guest.
Thank you, Evan and David. It's great to be here. I appreciate the invitation to speak today with Michael and you both. Michael Cohen and I have known each other for longer than I've been in the commercial real estate industry, which is 25 years. Michael introduced me to my first boss ever in the commercial real estate industry, just out of college at Standard & Poor's. I had the opportunity to work with Michael at UBS when I was head of capital markets for the entire commercial real estate and CMBS business there, while Michael was an originator. Michael has spent the entirety of his career at CMBS shops such as Deutsche Bank, UBS, and Citigroup, and recently, prior to COVID, started Brighton Capital Advisors to help clients move through the CMBS modification and or extension process in the CMBS business. So with that, I'll let Michael give a little bit of an introduction to Brighton Capital Advisors and tell us a little bit about the market today.
Thanks, John. I am happy to be here with you guys, and it's good to be amongst old friends and people that I've worked with. CMBS has been a very interesting career choice for me. I started out in the early 90s at DLJ, where we were doing the first conduit loans. And so I've pretty much done every facet of this business for the last, I would say, 20 years of my career, 25 years. I was the head of the Southeast region for Deutsche UBS City. And so I've learned a lot. And having and starting this business, the genesis was really knowing that COVID was going to affect a lot of the borrowers who are going to go through CMBS servicing and the complexities, and really wanting to help the borrowers. So happy to tell you guys all about what's happening in the marketplace, what the current servicers are doing, and really what to expect when you go in. Because I think there's definitely a gap of information that the borrower is going to really understand before, and their attorneys are going to understand before they go into, especially special servicing. So, feel free to ask the questions, and I'm happy to answer.
Well, Michael, I would just start with, what's going on in the CMBS market today. Give us a general overview.
Sure. So the market, ever since really COVID, and this is when I started COVID, we were all at a standstill. And I think there was a lot of apprehension for any banker or borrower to do much. So there was a lot of kind of extending in loans and pushing things. And as we have gone through a number of crises around the world in different various forms, and the bond market is kind of stabilizing, is that we're getting to a new period of an interest rate environment that I think most people would argue is somewhat stable for the time, and that would infer that cap rates should kind of level off and values should start to level off. So on a bigger picture, I was on a panel at one of the major law firms about 2 months ago, and one of the economists from one of the major banks was speaking, and he was saying that last summer, we pretty much went through the stabilization or the plateauing of the bottom for Class A. We're getting there on Class B assets. And now we're getting into the distress phase, because the distress phase always follows. And I would say, if people ask me where we are, I would say where the position players are all in the field, and the opening song is done, and the first batter's walking up to the plate. So where we're seeing is a level of lenders that are going to start to get more aggressive. We're starting to see the thaw. We're starting to see where they're feeling comfortable, where there's a market to do, to sell or to foreclose. So if you look back just at a couple stats, in the fourth quarter of this year, there was $140 billion of CMBS loans maturing. 65% was coming from SASB loans, 35% from conduit loans. Overall, about 80% of all those loans had a coupon of 5% or less. So just simple math means that there's going to be a cash in refi somewhere. If you look at the current CMBS pools, because really CMBS market is taking a lot of the product that the banks and the regional banks and some of the life cos may have taken in the last before COVID and not taking now. So they've really become a haven for a lot of loans. But the issue is they're limited. They're limited in size. Each contributor, they're doing $800 million pools now with 4 contributors. And why is that important? Because if there's only a certain percentage of, say, office that can go into a pool, so say that's 20%, then that means that each contributor, each major bank can only produce $40 million worth of office product. And that's not a lot. Second is, if you start looking at some of the data points, the Credit IQ does a pretty good job of putting out new data points, is that although the average debt yields are getting tighter, they were around 12% about 6 months ago. Now they're 10%. So the debt yield is going to be the NOI divided by the loan amount. So you can kind of see that that's a pretty conservative number at 10%. The average LTVs are 55 to 60%. And the coupons have been 6 3/4 to 6 1/4. So again, you really have to make a decision whether you want to keep your loan or not. And there's no more pretending. This is it. We're here. We're starting to see the thaw.
Good. So the end of extend and pretend, onto a new era.
Correct. This is you have to be. CMBS special servicing is equivalent to a pawn shop. You've gone in. You monetized your asset. You didn't know who was going to be, when you sold your watch to the pawn shop, you didn't know who was going to be the special servicer of that. You weren't told that, and you weren't told the pooling and servicing, all the rules and how much the fees they could charge. You just went in and got your money. So now you're back and you're saying, hey, I need to do something here. And you're dealing with investors, what I call investors. They're not lenders, they're investors that are going to make a determination to figure out what's best for the investor. Is it to foreclose and liquidate? Is it to modify you? Is it just to take a loss so they can move up the bond stack and be in a better position?
And so when you're going through these modifications, extensions, workouts, whatever the plan might be, are you seeing the servicers being willing to do one plan more than the other? I think what we see on the advisory side from everyone with an underwater loan is that the expectation or the first blush from every one of our clients is to sort of expect DPO. And that's something that really has not, been widely accepted throughout the CMBS servicing universe over the last 5 to 10 years, but it is still the primary entrant for every borrower that has a loan that's a little bit upside down.
People tend to lie about their golf scores at the country club, and they definitely lie about the fact that they're getting a discounted payoff. So I'm going to be very clear with everybody. Discounted payoffs are there, but they're very difficult, and they're not negotiable. I think that people think that if they get into special servicing immediately, that somehow they're going to have some power. That couldn't be further from the truth. Borrowers have to understand that their only choices are to give the keys back, pay off the loan, or litigate. That's it. That's your choice. And once you get into special servicing, a few things happen. One, all the remedies available under the loan documents, because you're now in default, will go to the special servicer and they will start to enforce it, including foreclosure notices, receiver installations, and full cash flow sweeps. And then the fees will start to commence. You'll have an annual servicing fee, 25 basis points per month.
Special servicing.
Special servicing fees, sorry. You'll have their legal fees, and you'll have modification and liquidation fees. So trying to think that you can go in and have some upper hand, that worked in CMBS 1.0 when the lenders had no liquidity and that you thought that they had to get it off their books. They don't have to right now. In fact, many of these things, the servicer is going to try to keep it in special servicing as long as they can under the pooling and servicing agreement to get as many fees out of you as possible. And in fact, we're also seeing a trend towards special servicers going back to the loan documents to see if they missed any of the cash flow sweep triggers that they should have done, and then coming back and wanting a clawback towards it. So we suggest to our borrowers that two things need to occur. One, you need to start talking to the servicer before the issue happens, because that socialization between the master and the special and the controlling class holder, which I'll get into in a second, is extremely important. The second is that you have to really have a good group around you to either be to have a good advisor like ourselves, but to also have a good legal team and to have a really good equity and debt team that's surrounding you, because you have to have all the information and kind of resources at your fingertips.
So you have this fundamental misalignment between all the parties, and you have, a number of challenges that you just brought up. What kind of deals are salvageable today? Like, where do you tell your clients to go?
So the first things that I always ask my clients are, there's two questions. Do you want to keep your property, and do you have money to put into the deal to do a modification? One of the things that I tell my borrowers is, even if they were to get a discounted payoff, which we've been able to achieve from very difficult special servicers, is the fact that the servicer is going to also look for a clawback after a couple of years. So you're not getting out of this free. There's no money making on this thing. And what you have to determine is whether you think that the property is at a valuation point that you think is right. If you think that you're way over levered, which a lot of properties are. I mean, I would say that multifamily is way over levered. It's not fundamentally bad. And you have to make the decision whether you can work it or not. Really, what we tell our clients is, if you're the best shepherd for this asset and you can make it through to the next level, then let's see if we can get a modification, an A/B note structure, loan extension, something that's workable, that the new equity can get their return, that people can come out. So when we start out with a client, we have multiple paths which we can go down, including, so there's offensively, right, to come up with a really good solution and a plan that can be done, or defensively, because if I have to have if your lawyers in there, and if the servicer starts to play hardball and it's being unreasonable, then we have to go down a different path.
And it's interesting, you talked about new equity, and without getting super into the details, could we have a quick discussion? Sometimes we hear that the property is such that the old equity is kind of gone, and new equity and the servicer kind of work together in a new waterfall. Can you talk about that a little bit? That happened in 2008 and could be happening now.
Yeah, John, you want to take that on? That's a great one for you. A little bond warfare.
Well, bond warfare, but I think what David's referring to is the reality of the new cash that would have to come into a modified loan, even with a servicer, any bank, any mezz lender. I think, what he's referring to is the question that every borrower that we come across that needs a modification or extension or workout has is, well, if I, if I'm at 120% LTV today, because of wherever the property is performing today. And I think in 5 years it'll be, maybe 90% LTV.
Right.
And, it's going to take 5 million, 2 million, however many millions of dollars to get from 120% down to 90% and get a little bit of positive leverage on my deal. How is that money going into the deal and our servicers being responsive to allowing that money to have a return before, all of the money comes back to the senior lender?
This is really where the misalignment of communication is, because most borrowers, I would say most, all, are not contemplating that there's a whole labyrinth of games being played behind the scenes that you're unaware of. Because the investors, you have the master servicer, who is your point of contact that handles all the administrative issues. You have the special servicer, who is responsible for navigate and managing all of the loan modifications. And then you have the controlling class holder, who's the lowest bond holder at the time and the ultimate decision maker. Now, sometimes and that would be the B piece buyer. So there's a difference, just to make sure everybody gets the lingo here. So a lot of times the special servicer is the controlling class holder, is that person or that group, but a lot of times they're not. So you're never 100% sure who's making the ultimate decision here. So when people go up, the borrowers that make the biggest mistakes are the ones that think that when they're on the phone with the master servicer, or even with the special servicer, whatever they're negotiating and trying to kind of create a relationship with that asset manager verbally is going to get done, goes nowhere. That's meaningless. There is no relationship. You have no leverage. Your leverage is in you being the best shepherd for this building. Your leverage is having knowledge about this building more than the lender. Your knowledge is having control over tenants. Your power is having a strong broker who can bring in equity or sell it or to refinance it. That's you're the good sponsor. So what we find is when people get in there and it's not in writing, it can't be communicated amongst the different parties, which I just outlined for you. So you're going to get a very bad result. So that's what we recommend. We recommend putting a plan together.
So just flipping back to the perspective of a real estate sponsor owner who's in this position, can you kind of outline what you think the top 2 to 5 considerations are when kind of faced with this? Obviously, a very large deal might be a little bit easier because you can swallow some of the fees a little bit more easily potentially, or things like that, or maybe not. Walk us through when something lands on your desk and you're trying to help somebody navigate how to proceed. And a lot of our listeners could be owners of commercial real estate in this position. Like, what are the like top 2 to 5, 3 to 5 things you're looking at?
Metrics
or quantifiable.
Yeah, a dollar is the same value, right? So whatever you're paying, you're right, a bigger deal, bigger problems, but the same kind of resolved depending on what you think the current value is. I'm seeing a lot of loans in the 85 to 90% LTV range today. That's kind of the biggest quandary that people have, is to say today it's 85
and those
to
loans
90.
should be in the 65 range. So where are we? How do we get there?
Well, correct. That and the fact
Was
that
it cap rates going up?
No, the issue I'm seeing is that
down.
people have equity in their deal. They see that they're going to have future equity in their deal if they can get the release of their reserves, if they can get money to the property level. They see the marketing and they see that if they could put in capital improvements and make it through this storm, that cap rates will compress and that they can get out of it. Their fear is that once they go, and it's a true fear, once they go into CMBS special servicing, that lender has every option just to take your property, to liquidate it, and have a nice day. So you have to be defensive at the same time you're offensive. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is you have a good building, but you lost a tenant, and it's just timing. It's a timing issue. Your tenant gave notice, or they're vacating, or they're given notice if they're vacating in a 10Q. We saw that in a building in San Francisco. They gave notice that they're not utilizing all their space, and the tenant and the servicer put them into a cash flow sweep. Well, if you're in a cash flow sweep and you can't get out, or your tenant got downgraded by two notches and you'll never get out, there's nothing you can do. You're stuck. So it's a matter, it's a gray area, and the market is continuing to move. I'll say this, there's nothing programmatic happening in the marketplace. That's good, because you can go in there and craft your own unique resolve. It's bad because it takes time. And we've gone to we get invited to a number of servicing conferences where we're able to talk to the specials and the masters, and we talk to them every day. We talk to all of them. And the issue is that they'll say is, why are you coming to us so late? So trying to do that is not a good idea.
So that's actually an interesting point when you say trying to come to us too late. So maybe why don't you give us sort of just a, timing rundown of when it's appropriate to go in, because even if everybody gets nervous that if they go contact this master servicer before there's a default, that they are potentially alerting the servicing regime to a potential problem, and you're going to potentially have an issue.
Yeah.
But as a borrower, that there's an issue coming or not, and so is the strategy to get ahead of it, or is the strategy to sort of wait and play games as and try to force the servicer to do something they're not going to do?
100% the former, because getting in front of it, we find that our success rate is probably low 90%, high 80%. Why? Because we pick deals that we think the sponsor is a good sponsor, has a good story, and that there's money, and they're communicating before the event. So I'll give you an example. We had an assignment on a large hotel CMBS loan that was in the Caribbean islands. They were shut down because of COVID. And they came to us and said, look, we need an extent. Our loan's due in July. They came to us in January. By the time it took us all that time to communicate our plan, and by the time we got to loan maturity, we didn't even have to get into a forbearance agreement. We went right to docs. Why is that beneficial? One, the special doesn't have as much control. Two, they're not incurring as many fees. And three, your plan. So you're at this point trying to play hardball with the servicers I can't say it enough, is the worst possible things that you can do. Because and in some cases it's great. Here's a case where you play hardball, and I'm right with you. You say the value of you've got 140% LTV on your property right now. It's not worth anything, and that you're probably the best owner for this, and you'll buy it, and you'll wait till it gets to auction. So at that point, we can cut a deal. But when you're offering that, you're not going to get a back and forth auction bid by the special servicer. You're going to say a number, and they're going to say yes, or they're going to say no. And if they say no, you can go chase up the pull. So understanding what the BOV, understanding the market, understanding what you have, understanding having the servicer know that you tried everything, you're probably in a better position then to get that discount. And I think that's the key. And the key is when we build the story, and that story has to come with, we don't want, if you're going to have to put new money into the property, you're probably going to have to put 10% of money into for a modification. Well, we don't want to pay down the loan. We want to put it in that property level so it's accretive, so you can start to use that capital. You're going to get probably an increase in your interest rate. Well, we want to keep that to a minimum. We want to put as many things that benefit the borrower into the loan modification as possible, and we create it on our terms and let the servicer come and tell us what we can and can't do. The servicers like us and will talk to us and respond to us very quickly because we're explaining to the borrower and their counsel what you can and cannot do under REMIC laws, which are the tax laws of the trust that it's sitting in, under the rating agencies, what the current trends are, of that nature. And that's the information that honestly, everybody, yourselves as advisors, the borrower and their counsel have to understand. We work with counsel all the time because we have to understand if there's any recourse provisions that you could pierce. We don't want to do that. So we have to kind of analyze everything in this deal and then figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are.
So Michael, what are like the top 2 or 3 levers that you see a sponsor having? Like if they show up to the conversation knowing where and how they're going to get some cash to put in, does that materially improve?
I'd say this. I'd say that the borrowers that come earlier, knowing that the problem is there, explaining that problem clearly, written by. That's what we do, because you have to. Unfortunately, it's not a one-page write-up. It's multiple pages, because the analytics that have to go into it are things that John and I have learned over our 25 years in CMBS of what the different constituents need to see. And really having a well laid out plan that's justified and backed up. Having money, so your lever is that. Your lever is having money. But there's ways to not put up all the money at once. We have ways that you could put up a little bit of money and use that as last dollar. And then you have to contemplate things and timing of getting feedback from the servicer so you can do it. So really, Evan, it's knowing your property better than the lender and saying, I understand, lender, you're not my partner, but I need you to participate with me to give me the latitude that I need to get through this issue. And I will get this either paid off at a discount, or we create an A/B note structure, or we do some other form that we can get it through. And by the way, if you want to give this if you want to take it from me, then, I own other properties in the market.
Got to be willing to walk, right?
Right.
So to sum up everything you said,
you can love. I give this example. I say this every time. You have your favorite car, and it's this beautiful cherry red Corvette. It's a '78 Stingray, and you've redone everything, and you got a loan for it. And then you lost your job, and you go to the bank and you say, but I love this car. What do you want the bank to do? So but if you say to the bank, I can keep this in good condition, this is the way that I'm going to do it, I can trade this for a better value in the future, you're going to get an extension. Sorry, that CMBS doesn't have the same levers or balance sheet issues that the banks do. Mm-hmm. They don't care.
They don't. Exactly.
Yeah, that goes to the misalignment of interest and the timing. So one of the things I'd like to better understand, since we have everyone for all of 2025 has been talking about $1 trillion CMBS wall of maturities.
Yeah.
We all see it leaking out. You're on the forefront of that, and it's unclear really what's getting resolved in sort of a regular fashion and what's getting kicked down the can still. But my question is for borrowers that are already in trouble or otherwise can know that they're getting into round 2 of trouble or coming up on a problem that existed and now they're over levered because rates are higher and there's more cash that needs to come in to do a potential refinance. How long ahead of either a maturity or an extension or an issue do borrowers need to get in touch with guys like you or get in touch with guys like us to put in touch with guys like
months, you? 6 to 9 months you go in before. I use the adage like you don't walk in the Amazon and start going in there and then decide to get a Sherpa when you're halfway through, right? You're really it is a 6 to 9 months process, and I'll explain why. The amount right currently, if you look at the trends, CMBS rate of special servicing is increasing every single month. It's very clear. It's very public data. The default rates in office are at an all-time high, past COVID, past the Great Recession. You're going to start to see you're going to see the multifamilies, and if there's a recession, then you're going to see a lot of hotels start to jump in. And what this does to the maturity wall, everybody you can extend for as long as you want. You can't pretend if there's no cash flow. So you have a lot of these loans that are just going to increase that tsunami. And what does that mean? There's if you went back to what I said, the CMBS conduit pools aren't big enough to handle all of this volume. And if the banks don't have full capacity of their balance sheets, you're not going to find a home. And there's no patience. You have zero relationship with any of these servicers. It's a fee income business for them. They invested in your property, and they will do what they need to do, what's best for them. So what you want to do is get in there 9 months beforehand. Because John, honestly, we have the same thing. We say the same thing to our borrower. Okay, what have you done? What does the debt market look like for you right now? What does the equity market look like for you for a sale right now? What other options do you have? Are there other equity partners that can come in to white knight you? What's your current tax situation? If you give back the keys, do you have a bad tax situation on your hands of debt forgiveness?
Recapture.
So you have to look at all these things. What's your recourse exposure? Did you have any personal guarantees here? So you have to take all these in consideration. So you need to build a team around yourself, and you have to start doing this. With 3 months before, you're too late. You're going to get to the point where the servicer's been contacting you, asking what you're doing. You're not supplying them with the current information. They don't know. They've already kind of concluded a couple things, and then you're just going to kind of get thrown on top of the pile. And honestly, you're then going to have to make decisions that, hey, I have a tenant coming in. How do I pay for it? Well, I can't get in touch with anybody. You can't rush them. But if you have a plan and you're in communication with them already, and we have a line into them, that means that anything new that's happening, we can establish. I'll give you a couple of great examples. We had a client that called us up and said, I can't close our loan in time for our for maturity date. And the master servicer had some leeway, gave us a few months of paid extension. And we're supposed to close, but Liberation Day just came out and all the banks are frozen. Well, they came to a point where the master servicer had to transfer it over to the special servicer. Mm-hmm. We had to track that loan. And by the time we tracked the loan to get a payoff statement, because otherwise they would have taken months, they wouldn't get their payoff statement. Finally, when we got the payoff statement, there's a huge special servicing fee in there, and that changed the whole dynamic of the deal because the interest rates are so high and cut the loan proceeds, and the fee from the servicer was so high that we negotiated a discounted payoff for this particular loan. You have to be in the game, and the only way you can be in the game is to be in communication, and the only way you can be in communication is to talk to a professional. If you're talking to your lawyer, they're going to be talking to the bank's lawyer. You're going to start charging up fees. We have most of our referrals come through the law firms. In fact, we do a lot of these presentations for the law firms. But we work with the George Smith partners of the world to do the debt and the equity. We're the key. We can unlock things. We can see things. We can see things in the documents. We can help to waive fees. We did a deal. And if you go to our website, you'll see a lot of the case studies at BrightonCapitalAdvisors.com. There's some other podcasts. You see case studies. One of them was interesting, and it's in Florida. And you had a Walmart anchored shopping center. It's a $50 million loan. The two borrowers were internally fighting, and they were fighting with the bank. They built up a $15 million default interest rate. Our investor wanted to come in to modify the loan and assume it. And the bank said you could assume it with the default interest rate. We went in there and we were able to clean up the default interest rate and get it assumed in time for a 1031 exchange. So can we go in there and expedite it? The way we expedite it is because we have a pre-packaged workout, but that workout has every single thing that you need incorporated into it. And it's already, and your lawyer's tracking it. So your lawyer understands if it goes the other way, we start to build defenses and have everything else. So what we're doing is we're protecting you. And it's not easy. I think this business, I've been in this business. I started out at DLJ in the early 90s and did every part of it. And there's so many rules that my team comprised of a senior advisor that was an external attorney, a senior closer in the CMBS group at Bank of America, and then he did the large loan and the other workouts at Bank of America when they started their practice. And the other woman has 20 years experience as a CMBS special servicer at Wells. So it's a very technical situation. It's not fluid. It takes a very long time to get these things done. And if you really aren't communicating the right, and there's a lot of language and under things you won't understand because it's completely illogical, and the servicers are out to get as much fee income as they possibly can. And under the pooling, and if you don't understand the pooling and servicing agreement, you need to know. So John, one of the things that's really important is you'll never go into the Amazon without understanding what to bring with you and what to expect. So why would you go into the CMBS special servicer going in blindly? So what we do is we can actually help you to tell you what your options are, to talk to the team about what financing and what equity and what disposition strategies that you should look at, because you really want to have an effective plan for yourself to go through it. And you can't start too early. And waiting, hope is not an action. So if you wait, here's the problem. I get people that say, okay, you know what? I could do it. Mike, that's great information. I'm going to go in and do it myself. If I have to come in and save you, we have a problem, because it's going to be longer. I'm hopefully going to be able to get everybody back to the table. It's going to cost you more, and you're not going to get the outcome that you wanted, because at that point, I can't put anything into the deal. I'm just trying to keep as many things, just trying to save the deal.
So your recommendation is to, 9 months ahead of whatever the problem is,
Start talking about it.
Extension, tenant rollover, whatever that
We're going to
issue
go
is.
we're going to go in. Look, if you start talking to 6 to 9 months, because at that point, 9 months, you kind of know what's going on. Look, as a former lender, if ever I talked to a borrower and I asked him about a tenant and he said, I don't know, I'd say you're lying, because I know all the borrowers know everything about their tenants, because that's why they're successful. So when you go into a situation, you start talking about this. So if you were to start the process in earnest 6 months before, that's the right timing, because it's going to take us a month to put this together and your strategy. It's going to take. We need a broker opinion of value. We need GSP John to go through and look through and scrub every single financing source out there. We're going to need to know everything that's going on, because the special is going to want to know, and the special is if you don't have that information, you're just delaying the process of the internal. Then once you get into that system, as I said, you've got potentially three different groups plus REMIC council plus rating agency. This is not one decision maker. This is a decision by multiple layers, and each layer is conflicted with each other within the system.
So it's a lot. If you're a lowly real estate sponsor with a few properties, the hornet's nest you're stepping into is beyond what you're used to. So if I were to try to summarize everything you've said here, and again, I think Jonathan just did a good job of starting to do that, which is start early. Don't be surprised about everything that's going to be all the moving parts that may be thrown around. Recognize that everybody in the process may have different interests and motivations of their own, and thus because of that extends the process. And then also you mentioned all the different third parties that you have to get to show up with reports, all the different work that you have to do internally and externally to create a plan and try to get that plan accepted. So
we work on Evan, that was a really good summary. I mean, we have a success-based fee structure, and what we really determine whether we're going to make that. We're interviewing the borrower at the same time, because we need to make sure you can make short process. Short, and honestly, getting in, having a plan, having equity, or having a source where you can get the equity. Being that, and honestly, if you own one building, that's a lot, right? You have that building. It doesn't matter to me whether it's one building on Main Street or the one in the middle of Bryant Park. We work on them all. Look, and every city is different, and every situation is different. And I can tell you that New York is you feel some momentum, and it's kind of coming out, but in Denver, there's high rates of it's stagnant. LA, they're stagnant. Phoenix, Denver, Chicago. We're finding solutions. In the way we're finding solutions by communication, and that communication is clear, concise, and when you go in and you present yourself the way that you presented yourself to buy the building and to get
Right.
the loan in the first place is the way you should be representing yourself as you're the market expert. You're smart enough to buy this building. You're smart enough to make money from this building. Well, then you're going to be smart enough to navigate and keep this building. But you have to spend some time and effort and money to build your team around you, just the way that you develop the property you bought it.
All right, well, let's wrap it up here. Jonathan, any final questions or thoughts from you, sir?
Yeah, I think what I've heard, and Evan, you just did a great job summarizing. 9 months ahead of the problem, get out in front of it. The reason that you hire advisors and you hire guys like Michael is because they understand how to put together a package and a plan that fits your property, but is comprehensive so that the servicers, they're always going to come back and continue to ask for additional things, and you're going to have conversations. But to start with an advisor that knows exactly what they want to see. And then, what I think is probably the most important thing for every borrower to understand is that there is money that is going to have to go into the property on some level, or to pay fees on some level. There is no, let's just write a piece of paper and I'll figure it out. That is not a strategy, candidly, that has ever been successful. Although a lot of people start from that perspective. I'm the best. I'm the only one that knows this property. I've done all this work, and the market's different now, so it's not my fault. So help me out. That's not a strategy. So the things that you need to really consider before you reach out to Michael: equity, comprehensive business plan, and give yourself enough time to give yourself the best chance to have a successful outcome.
There's two things that I say on our LinkedIn things. One is be prepared, be proactive. And the other one is access equals success. And where what we supply is access to the decision makers and access to the process. So if you understand what you're heading into, you're probably going to have the best plan you can. And if you want to reach us, you can certainly find us on BrightonCapitalAdvisors.com. We're headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we cover the country. And
that was going to be my next question, so you already took it away.
And I would add that this process is not like a lending process where there's all kinds of marketing. The servicers are obtuse and hard to reach, and Michael sheds light on that process.
Great. Well, Michael, thank you for joining us today, and Jonathan, it's a pleasure to have you here. So just in terms of reaching out to George Smith Partners, just a reminder for folks, gspartners.com/finfax. This is the Landscape Podcast. You can find this just about anywhere where podcasts are. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.